Ms. Young, please, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Ms. Chair and members of the committee, for the opportunity to speak with you today. I'm here to offer the perspective of Surrey and White Rock, one of Canada's fastest growing and most strategically important economic regions. Surrey's geographic and economic scale is significant. Our city is large enough to hold Vancouver, Burnaby, and New Westminster combined, with substantial land left over, and that size translates directly into national economic value. Surrey accounts for roughly 22% of Metro Vancouver's industrial land at a time when job-enabling land is scarce across the region. We also anchor one of North America's most strategically positioned logistics corridors, stretching from the U.S. border to the Fraser River and connecting into rail, road, and marine networks that support the Pacific Gateway. Our employment concentration in transportation and warehousing is 60% higher than the regional average, underscoring our central role in goods movement. We are culturally diverse and speak over 100 languages, connecting us to economies around the world. We welcome measures announced in Budget 2025 under the One Canadian Economy Act agenda. These commitments will support economic resilience, advance key sectors, and help Canadian businesses diversify beyond traditional markets. But more than anything, what we need is a stable trade environment to reach our collective goals. A recent policy resolution we authored has already influenced measures like supply chain diversification, the reduction of interprovincial trade barriers, and stronger SME supports. But with 64% of businesses reporting cross-border uncertainty as a major concern, many are adjusting productions, delaying investments, or considering relocation. Many of the SMEs in our region do not have the capacity or desire to scale up rapidly. Others wish to expand, but are constrained by uncertainty, rising costs, and the risks associated with entering new markets. We have heard directly from local businesses about the profound impact of tariffs, from the small nail salon that can no longer afford to import special packaging that they relied on, to a large paper product manufacturer with $100 million in sales annually that has acted swiftly to reduce their reliance on U.S. imports by 30%. CUSMA remains the cornerstone of North American economic stability. Our national resolution highlighted that unpredictable trade actions can undermine competitiveness, cause layoffs, and discourage further investment. The upcoming review is therefore not just a procedural exercise, it is a chance to reinforce predictability, strengthen integration, and ensure the agreement continues to work for businesses on both sides of the border. Drawing on what we've heard from SMEs and the recommendations endorsed nationally through our resolution, several priorities should guide Canada's approach. These include a stable, tariff-free North American marketplace. Tariffs on key Canadian industries drive up costs and disrupt supply chains. Canada must continue pushing for the removal of unfair tariffs, establish a clear trilateral process to prevent new trade disputes, and use proportionate responses that defend Canadian interests without hurting our own industries. We also need to modernize Chapter 16. The list of eligible professional occupations has not been updated since the 90s and no longer reflects today's workforce. Expanding it to include modern sectors like tech, finance, and the creative industries would remove barriers for businesses and strengthen North American labor mobility. And third and final, we need to stand up for all people. CUSMA currently includes limited protections for women, gender-diverse groups, and Indigenous peoples, leaving barriers to participation and equitable benefits. And while the U.S. has moved backwards in this area, in Canada, we know that our diversity is our strength. We recommend Canada use the review to strengthen protections and ensure meaningful consultation with impacted groups. As you consider Canada's position heading into the CUSMA review, I encourage you to look beyond macroeconomic indicators and consider the very real human impact of trade instability on the SMEs that form the foundation of our economy. We need businesses of all sizes, all types, and from diverse groups of people to be productive and resilient for our nation to prosper. Surrey and White Rock stand ready to contribute to a strong and competitive marketplace. With proactive leadership, Canada can protect its economic interests, support its business community, and strengthen its position on the global stage. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much.
First of all, having removed some interprovincial barriers, did that help you in the Surrey Board of Trade?
some advancements, at least in the attitude or the thought process between where businesses used to want to do business just across the border with the U.S. That was easy. And now they're starting to think beyond, they're thinking east to west instead of north to south. However, there's still, I would say, a lot of people just sitting back and waiting to see how things will go, because they'd rather not risk getting into any new market and leave behind what they know has worked for them. So, they say, I had one business say to me, it takes about a year to get into a new market. And because I was telling them you need to diversify. And their response was, but Joslyn, it takes a year, and we have, limited resources, and we've made so many investments on our current supply chain. And I said, well, you have 3 years left of Mr. Trump, so you can decide what you want to do now or later. At the Surrey and White Rock Board of Trade, we have established a trade hub, and we are looking for funding to improve the B2B networking that can happen across the country by building a database that connects all of the chamber CRM systems that would allow us to do business with each other more easily. But right now, those relationships are not necessarily established or thought of first.
Je sais qu'il y a des missions commerciales des fois à l'étranger,
You know
mais
that there are trade missions abroad, but do you do trade missions within the country to help create new markets going east or west? So what market would be the most promising for you?
Pacific Can application. In fact, we would love to do an interprovincial trade missions. We feel that that would be an excellent way to improve B2B connections. The current appetite is there. We have many different industries. So agritech, for example, Innovation Boulevard in Surrey is very strong. And so there are opportunities to connect with various provinces, mostly in the tech space, I'd say, would go across Canada. And we also have a very rich post-secondary environment with SFU and other universities in the area who work with industry to create new solutions to businesses' problems.
par rapport à votre exportation Board of
In
Trade,
relation to your exportation board of trade or export board of trade, if you want to export things, are the trains and ports, is infrastructure sufficient for what you want to export? Are there things you'd want to improve on that level?
I worked for both CN and the Vancouver Fraser Port Authority, and so I can tell you that Surrey is very ideally situated to support our trade capacity. But what we do need is more trade infrastructure. So we need more port capacity, and we also need the road and rail infrastructure to lead us to those ports. What people don't think about is that the West Coast is the end of the line. So all of the trade supply and the supply chains get pushed into the Vancouver region, and then it's stuck. Where do you go from there? So if that's not working well, trade for across Canada does not work well. So yes, we have a great base, but we do need more.
merci. Tantôt, vous avez parlé de stand-up
Thank you.
for...
Earlier, you talk about stand up for all. You talked about diversity. I also had the privilege of being the chair of the Liberal Women's Caucus, where 40% of the MPs. And what would it take to help women and First Nations? I know it's more difficult to put your hand on capital. What is most necessary, in your opinion?
For education, first of all. Most SMEs had started with a good idea and not necessarily the education in order to provide the knowledge that they need to, for example, read a profit and loss statement. And so the business will get ahead of them, and then they don't have what they need in order to take it to that next level, bring in investment and grow the business. And so we have established something called the Business Growth Academy, which will allow for peer-to-peer learning. So we take those who in the know in the business community who have gone through it and can teach each other how to get through those hurdles. And then again, going to the post-secondary environment we have, We're connecting with the universities for micro-credential learning. But we have, because of the diversity of our population, everyone's very welcoming in the Surrey and White Rock region, and they know what it takes to be successful. So they also know how hard it is, and they like to help each other. So that's what we've established in order to try to help our business community. And I would love to help other chambers across Canada establish the same opportunities.
Ms. Young, I wanted to ask you about the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, the CPTPP, I think, if I get all those letters right. Is that something you're aware of? And what would your members think about that being advanced and perhaps concluded someday?
Our members are happy for any kind of certainty when it comes to government relationships, regulations, and the stability of being able to do business. So if you ask your average small to mid-sized business, what do you know about that? Maybe not a lot. Maybe they don't have the capacity to spend time looking into to things that are beyond the day-to-day. Exactly, but what they do know is when they all of a sudden have to hire a lawyer or a customs broker or logistics consultant because they no longer understand what's going on in their own business. Those are the real day-to-day impacts that they see. And so what they are asking us for is just, can we get some answers? Can we understand what's happening? And can we please have some stability? They just can't make any business decisions right now. And we're seeing millions of dollars just sitting on the table waiting to be invested.
Along that line, how long can your members hold out in this climate of uncertainty?
It depends. The top performers are taking advantage of the lack of action from others, and they're making investments and decisions. But also some are saying, you know what, I'm going to sit back and wait. That's the majority. Some are investing elsewhere. Some are having to lay off workers because they are unable to feel like there's something positive down the road. So, you have to think that most of the small businesses and mid-sized businesses in Canada are employing a lot of our neighbors. And they really depend on those jobs. They're the ones that make the economy go around. And so this current climate is difficult for them, and they just really want some answers.
Thank you.
Mr. Fonseca, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And my questions, I'll start with Ms. Young. First, Surrey White Rock, it sounds like just tremendous potential there. You got rail, road, the ports, and the opportunity to grow. I wanted to ask you, in your opening remarks, you brought up the trade hub and business to business. Can you tell us some of the when was it first established and some of the successes that have come out of that trade hub?
So the Surrey and White Rock Board of Trade used to be two chambers of commerce that just came together after quite some time, officially in October. So we're now the Surrey and White Rock Board of Trade. And the trade hub is about 6 months old. So what we've seen right now, like I can look back at what we've done before, and we've had a lot of policy successes. But when it comes to interprovincial trade missions, those are still on the books. And our greatest wish to build the B2B networking across the country is still to come. We're looking for some government funding to support that work so that we can roll it out to chambers across Canada, is our hope. And the Surrey and White Rock Board of Trade does currently have over 25 signed MOUs with countries around the world. We regularly have roundtable discussions with visiting consul generals, and then we bring in impacted industries or potential customers and suppliers for those different countries. And so the B2B matchmaking piece that we're doing in the old-fashioned way, face-to-face, has been very successful. And what we're hoping to do is to build that across the country with the Trade Hub.
Okay, great. And these MOUs that you have, you said 25. So would those be with some of the countries where are those interprovincial or those other countries?
Those are other countries.
Other
So,
countries.
yeah.
So we just heard about the CPTPP. Would they be some of the CPTPP countries? We just signed an agreement with Indonesia, another opportunity. Can you tell us about some of those those MOUs?
So these MOUs are essentially to build communication and connections. That is the purpose. So, for example, we've had the Mexico come to the table and talk to us about the various different industries that they have in the Baja part of Mexico, and talk to us about different trade missions that they'd like us to join, and perhaps agritech food shows. That's a big one. We have a great relationship with the Consul General of Guatemala, and I don't say that just because he gives me coffee whenever I visit. And it's also about cultural understanding and potential tourism back and forth. But really, it does come down to business. Guatemala and Canada have a great relationship when it comes to bringing agriculture workers into the country. That's an official way that we work together, and so we'd like to expand upon those opportunities. So the MOUs are really to say, you know what, I'll work with you, you work with me, we recognize each other and these potential opportunities.
And I hope you're getting support from our trade commissioners' offices. Absolutely. Yes, and those services that are available. Okay, great. That's wonderful to hear.
Mr. Savard-Tremblay for 2.5.
Madame Young, pouvez-vous nous parler
Ms. Young, could you tell us a bit about some liberties that were taken by the U.S. In terms of the spirit of CUSMA, some getting around things. There was a suspension of some exemptions, for example. Could you tell us about that?
Bad behavior on that in particular, but what I can tell you is that the Pacific Northwest Economic Region of British Columbia's Lower Mainland and Washington State and some surrounding areas are very familiar with working well together. And at a conference that we attended in the summer, where these people from both sides of the border get together to talk about how we can work together, the U.S. ambassador, I was in the room when he directly said, Canadians have been mean and nasty. And so that right there impacted the relationship. We later followed up with the Consul General of the U.S. came to visit us in Surrey, and we had a conversation around what kind of relationship do we want to have. We want to have upfront, authentic, honest relationships where people don't have to worry about aggressive tactics. What the business community is doing is they're solving the problems that government has failed to solve. A Canadian company will talk to their U.S. counterpart, and they will agree to split the tariffs that are impacting one of them. They will also say, you take the Canadian customers here, and the U.S. company takes the U.S. customer. They literally split their customer base. So this is an example of how the companies are actually solving problems while they wait for government to figure it out.
Here. Ms. Young, you talked about your community. You say it's quite diversified on the cultural level. So, and Canada wants to open markets, the Indo-Pacific, the ASEAN. Do you do business with these places? Is there a potential for increasing trade activities with them? Tell us about the strength that your cultural diversity in the region gives you.
Cultural diversity and the languages spoken mean that we already have existing relationships in these countries. And all that's needed is the supports in order to either invest in a new country, which of course we have, but you often have to look in many different places in order to understand it as a new business person who wants to start business in another country or selling to another country. We, through the Trade Hub, will be offering these supports by taking all of the various different government programs and putting them in one place. What busy business people don't have time for is researching what is out there. So we are putting that all in one place so that they can find it there easily, and also providing that education. The other thing we need to do is broaden our scope in the countries where we already are doing business. So these are countries that understand Canada, what we have to offer, and we need to look at different markets within those countries where we're already doing business. And that's what I recommend that we do. Surrey has, of course, every industry you can think of. We have most manufacturers out of any city in British Columbia. And so there's many opportunities, especially with our supply chain so close with the ports as well.
Et parlez-moi, quels sont les secteurs les plus porteurs, les plus
Tell me, what are the most interesting sectors to be developed abroad, for development abroad?
Country. So different countries have different interests of what they would like to import from Canada. So, for example, in Asian countries, Canadian fruit and pork. So your agriculture is very big, but there's also many services that are exportable, not just products. And so we need to think about it from that side of the coin as well. What we really need to think about is educating these countries on what it is that we have to offer. So trade missions are the best place to do that. But what we've heard from the business community is that it feels like a bit of a photo opportunity versus real business-to-business conversations and figuring out what we can do together. So I would encourage government to think about bringing more industry representatives on the trade missions and making time for those real conversations.
Okay, thank you very much.